All the Earth is blue and there's nothing I can do. A space oddity. Ziggy Stardust must die. David Bowie. Something went terribly wrong with the Mars expedition. Because of a dropped 4-bit group in a complex equation in the onboard navigation computer, the spacecraft approached the moon at the wrong trajectory. It wasn't enough to be noticed by either ground control in Houston or by the two astronauts aboard, but it was enough to make a rendezvous with Mars or any other planet in the solar system impossible. It was 3 weeks into the mission before the course of the spacecraft widened off the planned course enough to be noticed. By that time, it was too late. Clay Hill, from the United States, and Major Thomas Tom of the United Kingdom were hurtling helplessly towards Jupiter on a course that would slingshot them into intergalactic space. The two occupants of the vessel didn't care, though, because they were asleep and would continue to be so until such time as mission control needed them to be awake. As a result, they were unaware of their situation. It took less life support that way, and there was the matter of stress of two people in close confinement for extended periods of time. It wouldn't do to have them at each other's throats when they were supposed to be exploring space. It was decided during the planning stages of the mission to, through the use of light general anesthetic and intravenous solutions and catheters and lowered body temperatures to cause a state of hibernation such as found in groundhogs and bears. Such a state could be maintained almost indefinitely, at least as long as the food lasted. Mission control was in a quandary. They could change course and bring the astronauts home, but there would be insufficient fuel for reentry and landing, and insufficient life support to park them in Earth orbit until a rescue mission could be mounted. This was because it was necessary to wake them up to make such a major course change, because it would require putting the vessel on manual control. It would be impossible to put them back to sleep afterwards, because they would have to fly it the whole way back. There was no computer program written to cover that eventuality, what with budget cutbacks and whatnot. The other alternative was to just let them sleep until their life support ran out, or they hit something. People tend to forget about things that are not publicized regularly, so the public would soon forget about the two brave souls lost in space. That alternative would cost nothing but guilt in the individuals responsible and whatever would be necessary to maintain secrecy. Naturally, that was the alternative that was chosen by mission control. Soon Jupiter's gravitational field started its inexorable pull on the vessel, and it started picking up speed and turning toward Jupiter. Had the two travelers been awake, they would have been terrified anyway. They missed asteroids by inches. Some of the bigger asteroids had enough gravity to alter the course of the vessel, but it still was pulled by Jupiter. The vessel accelerated as Jupiter's influence increased. Its speed increased logarithmically as it neared the huge planet. The course was such, though, that the vessel cleared the atmosphere and was hurtled onto a new course at a much higher speed. As the vessel sped away from the jovial influence, a technician noted the course change and the speed change on his clipboard and carefully noted the time and date. He checked it with the numbers on his computer screen and continued eating his lunch. 2 years and 10 months after the miscalculation, the errant Mars probe entered the inner circle of planets in an adjoining star system. Every time the probe neared another planet, its speed increased by an exponential factor. The larger the piece of dark matter, the greater the exponential number. Finally, the red dwarf, M27645, captured the probe in a roughly elliptical orbit, and the probe decelerated to simple supersonic speed as it blended into the pattern of orbiting bodies. The orbiting didn't last very long, though, as the orbit intersected the orbits of more than one planet. A collision was imminent. Clay Hill and Major Tom slept on, totally unaware of their new course and surroundings. So did the experimental packages in the landing module. Eventually, Planet 4's gravity captured the probe, and the computer started the landing sequence. Planet 4 was considerably larger than Mars, but the system was programmed to Martian gravity. As the probe started making preparations for reentry, a drug dripped into the circulatory systems of the astronauts. Slowly, their body temperature and metabolism started increasing. The cabin life support system clicked on, as did the cabin lights. Clay Hill and Major Tom stirred to life again. Back in Huntsville, at Mission Control, a technician noted these changes too on his clipboard. He made careful note of time and date. "Hey, Limey," said Clay Hill, "I think we're there." "I guess so, Yank." Let's check things out before we land and make sure things are working right. Righto. Hey, we seem to be moving too fast for reentry. Look at these readings. Holy shit. I don't think this is Mars. Where are we then? It sure ain't Kansas. Let's flatten our approach a little. This ain't your Queen's Harrier. How in the hell are you going to flatten the approach a little? We're still on autopilot, programmed for a Martian landing. That certainly does not look like Mars down there. Watch me yank. Major Tom's hands flew over the control panel. He shut down the autopilot, adjusted the attitude to use the retro rockets to change course. Clay Hill now understood how Major Tom had won the Victoria's Cross in the Falklands campaign. Unfortunately, even the best pilot cannot escape the power of pure destiny. All he can do in a guaranteed crash situation is make it possible to recover the bodies of the victims, instead of vaporizing everybody and everything. There was simply not enough time. Mission Control, we are attempting a landing. We are in an unmapped quadrant, and we are not even sure if this is Mars. We are shooting video to see if you can tell us where we are. Our deceleration is not proper for a soft landing. Do you copy? Do you really think they will hear us? All we can do is try. Do you really think you can land this thing? Are there any other options? Kiri maybe. I think it will be more kamikaze. Just think, we're destroying a $25 billion international space effort, live on network TV. Do you think there's any body watching? Who knows? I had this dream. Was it about a do-it-yourself universe? How did you guess? Earth. I had one too. Here goes the last of our fuel. This burn should slow us down enough to climb out. Shit, we're out of fuel. Hey Limey, nice knowing. Back at Mission Control in Huntsville, the signal from the probe suddenly stopped. A technician put down his sandwich and noted the time and date on his clipboard. The signal had stopped transmitting usable data for almost a year, as the signal was too weak to be read as anything but a radio signal, distinguishable from all the others by its frequency and amplitude. The receivers weren't sensitive enough to decode the message. Only a few people in the upper echelons of NASA and the Royal Space Agency knew what the signal was, and they weren't talking for fear of scandal. 17,000 pounds of probe came in violent contact with a large rock outside the solar system. Part of the 17,000 kilos was 430 kilos of biomass. Because of Major Tom's heroic efforts at a soft landing, the biomass was more or less concentrated to a 30 square meter area. Thus, mankind's destiny was fulfilled. Life was planted. Splat. The technician in Huntsville ate his sandwich and dialed his superiors. They wanted to know when the signal stopped. No signal, no evidence. No one told the technician. He had no need to know.